Hi, welcome to One Word Today. I'm Sophia, pilot into the universe of Chinese. We are going to continue our journey in learning just a little bit more of Chinese expressions today. And yesterday we talked about 俯首甘为孺子牛. It came from a poem from Lu Xun, and this is one of the best known poem line because the poem were like 8 lines, and this is one of the most known line of this famous early 20th century author. And it talks about sacrifice yourself. So you would rather be a suckling baby ox, like show your vulnerability and serve the people. So I don't know. There's a certain logic jump over there, like why I refer to sacrifice. But show your vulnerability. 孺子 definitely is, because suckling baby, that comes from this baby sign and this ring, beard, waiting. I have a whole episode yesterday to explain how the suckling image put together, how the logic were evolved. That's, again, my theory. There's scholar version and my version. And this suckling means the baby is still under breastfeeding. The baby cannot eat and chew on its own yet. So it's dependent, its livelihood is dependent on another human being, most likely the mother. So it's still a breastfeeding baby, unweaned baby, basically. So this is the type of 孺子 we're talking about. And today we carry over 2 characters. I'm trying to do 2 character carryover because it's getting really long, the episodes, and it happened to be that I can find phrases that have more overlapping than just one character. So 孺子, again, suckling, kid. I mean, eventually when we use terms, we were not exact anymore, right? Things get fuzzier and fuzzier over time. And so here, it doesn't necessarily mean babies who cannot talk yet. They are on the livelihood. I mean, they are still at the breast of their mothers. It's not that type of small kids, like infantry kids, that you are trying to teach anything. It's no. At that stage, the brain, I mean, I don't want to go through the whole child development thing, but that's probably a little bit too early for education. Early child education, yes, probably, but that's just too early, I think. It's babyhood. And cool. I add a parenthesis, can be taught, because in English, to be grammatically correct, you have to do this passive tense of babies are taught. So they have to be, with a be to be there. But Chinese, we don't have such issue. We just say 可教. It doesn't mean baby teach other people. It means baby are taught by, adults. So here we don't have this passive active. Is it the subject or the object of this teaching behavior? But English, we have to make it correct, right? Okay, 可 means can, because it came from this podium-looking thing, stand, with the mouse. We met this character multiple times, and I still hold the same theory on how we understand the can. This podium and speaking is a particular ancient practice. That is, I call it a divine decoder. So people who try to forecast how is the new year going to be. Is it going to have enough rainfall or over rainfall or flooding, right? So the weather forecast probably is one type of major forecast, because for agrarian society, farming each year, each season is critical to your livelihood, or at least to your economics of your governing the whole nation, right? Or regional. So this forecasting, somebody stand on a kind of a podium position and then try to probably read the sky, try to decode what's going to happen for that year, kind of a reading some of celestial signs, either read the stars or the clouds or something readable. They try to use that as a predictor for future happenings, especially weather conditions. And this mouse means speaking. So somebody who try to read, right? Try to decode and then spread the word to speak to the public back then, the farmers who are eager to know how is weather going to be. So that becomes cool because probably that divine decoder would say, okay, now is a good time to farm. Or it looks like this year it's good to farm so-and-so crop because of the weather condition looks like more likely like that, right? So that permission from the divine decoders message passing become the ultimate, like you're allowed to do something because the divine said so, or the weather forecaster said so. Okay, so that's cool. 叫, we have, again, the baby, you see, it's a recurring symbol. So by knowing this basic blocks, you can eventually, I mean, theoretically, right? Because there are non-linear parts, but a lot of them are based on human living conditions back then. And then we piece together all the symbols to build up more complicated concepts. So here, baby with a ring and a beard, baby with bookshelf, or sort of kind of symbols over there, and with a hand with kind of a ruler thing. So baby with a hand ruler thing could be interpreted as corporal punishments back then, because hand holding a tool, this tool could be kind of a whip. I mean, of course, babies are not slaves. They're not to be whipped on, but type of corporal punishment that inflict pain on the learner so that the learner has a better chance of memorizing something to do or not to do. So that was probably one of the teaching methods used back then. Because correction of a baby, unlike the contemporary teaching method, right? You're just by talking, by leading, by showing examples, by reasoning, whatever. That ancient way, more brutal way, I guess, or more direct way is to inflict pain on the baby. Probably, I mean, it's tolerable pain, or at least a memorable pain to the baby. So the baby then take notice of what you can or cannot do. And that's part of the teaching practice back then. And this cross sign, I'm not exactly sure what that means. It looks like a bookshelf, stylized IKEA bookshelf, but I doubt that's part of ancient living conditions. It could also be kind of a cross, could be some sort of net that baby is facing a net of knowledge, and I have to start somewhere and, you know, go sorting throughout the knowledge network. I don't exactly know what a cross signs over there. And cross sign just without a baby symbol, without right hand, just that look to me as a contemporary Chinese user, we do have this two cross next to each other. Of course, it's a little bit different stylized. That was used as part of the rebuting or debating, something like a verbal battle, basically. So different sides of ideas conflicting, and they have crossovers, and eventually they come to a sort of a conclusion. One convinced the other side, or partially convinced, have a, you know, things are get debated, get better thought out, because it's when it goes through the debating process. So all this are explainable, like we can see what this crosses could possibly mean. Bookshelf, unlikely. Debating, possible. Network of knowledge, very likely. So over this part, it's leave for interpretation or imagination, that we have this baby facing this network of knowledge, let's just put it that way, and then they are reinforced to learn it, right? And so because knowledge itself cannot give you right and wrong like right away, so somebody have to give this feedback system to the baby to tell them you make it right or wrong. Reinforcement learning, just like computer reinforcement learning. So signaling right or wrong is done by this ancient way of using hand, holding some type of tool, I imagine what kind of a ruler. If you made a mistake, you get a slap on the hand, and to tell you no, it's wrong. So probably babies, especially when they were young, they probably do not have a good feedback system to catch their attention. Probably it's easier to send the signals that way. That's my best explanation. So these are the teaching component. Like this is the method of teaching, and this is the subject of what you want to learn, network knowledge. I like that now. Okay, and then this is the who is being taught, is the children. So the three component of there, it becomes our teaching side. So this is teaching. And in this context, we easily, Chinese can convert the verb without do any transformation of the verb, right? In English, we have to be converted to passive. And also, from teaching to taught, right? There is a sort of transformation of this character, sound-wise and also spelling-wise. But in Chinese, it's the same. 可教, it means taught here in the context because we're talking about kids. So kids are being taught, right? So can means they can be taught. Simply means they're malleable. I guess kids generally within the kids population, if there is a malleability, variation, it could be a spectrum of malleability, right? Some kids are more open to be taught, to accepting new knowledge, to be corrected, fast learner, so to speak. Some are not to be taught that way, especially like a corporal kind of punishment type. It may work or may not work on some particular kids. So here, 孺子可教, Chinese just point out the difference among kids. Like some other kids are more teachable, more formable. You can show them the way, maybe once or twice, they get it. You don't need to repeatedly drill the message to them. They get it fast. So that's the kind of a 孺子可教. And here I put a poster, photograph from 1991. It's a poster child, basically, of Chinese government funded efforts called Project Hope, 希望工程. They're specifically targeted at rural areas in China who doesn't have enough funding, doesn't have enough schooling facilities or the teachers over there. And the government in the early 1990s started this 希望工程 Project Hope to reach out to the rural areas to provide them to, I guess, fund them, basically, have better access to education. And this is a picture captured back then by a photographer, and it was used again and again in the communication, government communication, PR, basically, to say this is what government is aiming to do, is to raise the kid above their level or improve the educational conditions in the rural areas, because in the early 1990s, most of the populations in China still reside in the rural area. The city urbanization was happened like later on. So a whole generation of people, majority of the population still in the rural. And so when they were growing up, a lot of them don't have, at least in the past, before the 1990s, especially just passed through the decade-long Cultural Revolution, a whole generation of educational opportunities were wiped out, city or rural. But the cities, when it got back to normal society, that government take the responsibility of providing public education to the population, the cities catch up faster, right? And the rural areas were the ones that lagged behind. And you can see, this is a zoom in view of the girl, but rural conditions, economic-wise, health-wise, like everything, were not on par, like far lagging behind the city urban areas. So this project was specifically targeting people like this girl, and she became the poster child of that project simply because of this pair of I would not say piercing eyes, but there are some light reflections on her eyes that shows the curiosity, the thirst to learn, to want to improve, because education in China, as well as in the US, probably more so in China back then, was regarded as the way for anyone to change your life, to change your destiny, so to speak. So if you don't want to stay in the rural area for the whole lifetime, you better grab that pencil, start to learn. And then you have a better chance to go to the city, become someone, achieve something in your lifetime. So that's the mentality. That's the capture of the moment of this eager to learn student who were probably a beneficiary of this Project Home in 1991. All right, so that's 孺子可教, Malleable. Catching into the concept of thinking by one word a day with Sophie. See you another day.